been
it.
listening to so much Prince. It's a disgusting
Cool.
Prince. Last summer it was all about. There we go. Last summer it was all about Michael Jackson, and this summer it's
Mm,
all about Prince.
nice. Yeah. Funny. I should get more into him. I was blown away by the few albums I heard of him, but
Do you know anything about Emancipation?
no.
Man, it's like my favorite Prince album, and it's just the one that happened to be in stores when I discovered Prince existed at age
Oh,
12
okay.
or however old I was, you know.
Right.
And it's a triple album. It's like 3 CDs. Each
Wow.
disc is exactly 60 minutes long, uh, and he designed it that way to synchronize with the pyramids at Giza.
No way.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's also like an
Whoa.
amazing album. Like I love it. Yeah.
Wow. Emancipation. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Prince is kind of like that he has obviously some sort of a spiritual side to him, right? He was a
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witness,
He
I
was
think.
Witness. Yeah. And this was the album that released kind of right after that conversion, I think, or around
Oh,
that time. There's a lot of God stuff on this
mm,
record. Uh,
nice.
it's also right when he got married, and he was about to become a father, but then the child died. It was like a big tragedy.
Okay.
But that happened after the album released. So the album is full of all these like "I'm a dad now" like spiritual songs that were
Oh, right.
colored retrospectively by that tragedy. Uh,
Wow.
he never performed any of these tracks live. Really, it's kind of like this lost album in a way because I think it was
Yeah.
part of a personal tragedy for him. Yeah,
Mm,
but I love it. He put
amazing.
the child's heartbeat in one of the songs, you know, as like the kick drum or something.
Wow. Fuck.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah,
God,
fucking crazy.
I'm looking at I love this thing Prince does of using like icons in the titles. Like
Yeah,
there's
I know.
an I
Yeah.
sign,
Well, it's like hieroglyphic. It's part of
hieroglyphic.
that
Yeah.
pyramid theme on this album. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to have only one Prince album.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's
Which one
let's see
was
like
it?
uh
I actually don't even know Prince's discography that well. He recorded 39 albums, or released rather 39
right.
albums. It's insane.
Uh it's one called Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just listening to that one.
Cool.
It was a
Yeah.
5-disc set, wasn't it? Or no, I'm
Oh,
thinking of
really?
Crystal Ball. Never mind. That happened right around the same time.
Yeah, no, I think this is just it's a single album, but it's a completely like 90s poppy. Well, it's no, it's 1999, so it's almost like 2000y kind of.
Oh yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I
This
remember.
was. I think this followed Emancipation, probably.
Oh, right.
It's
Fuck.
the one he did. So no, Crystal Ball, I guess, is the thing that exists in between.
Okay,
There was
okay, right.
Emancipation, then there was Crystal Ball, which was a 5-disc set that included an album called The Truth, also, which just got re-released, I think.
Wow,
And
shit.
and then after that it was Rave into the or Joy into what is it?
Yeah, yeah. Rave
Rave into the Joy
and to the
Fantastic.
Joy Fantastic.
The
That's
Truth is
insane.
crazy. I want to really recommend that one to you. The Truth is like this weird stripped down acoustic guitar thing with like synths in it too, though. Um, and
Wow.
there's a song in it specifically called Animal Kingdom, which is
Hmm.
about him being a vegan.
All
and
right.
everything about the song is just hysterical. It's so funny. I'm trying to find lyrics to it. Um, but yeah, anyway, just check it out.
God. I love the logo of Crystal Ball. It looks like a video game
Yeah, and
thing.
it's shipped in like this like clear plastic, like weird
Mm.
CD case thing, like
Oh,
circular
right.
CD case thing. But yeah,
Amazing. I don't know much about Prince, but like he did everything, right? He did like his drums and his bass and like
yeah. He was a real like multi-track musician. You know, he was not only did he play all these instruments, like, but he also did all the production and recording too, more or less. And I'm sure he worked with mixers and producers to get stuff up to like mega pro quality, but he basically did all the artistic production choices and stuff himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And all the arrangement and stuff. He arranged all these crazy horn parts and like.
Oh, cool.
He was an amazing guitarist,
Mm.
but a really amazing bassist. I think he's
Right.
kind of underrated as a bassist because he was such an amazing singer and guitar player. But wow, he was a crazy bassist. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
God, I really need to, because I loved Joy to the Raven to the Joy Fantastic, and it's so funny also because
You'll love Emancipation. It's a similar aesthetic. It's that '90s production. People hated those albums at the time, like Prince fans.
Right.
They said they sounded plastic and computery, but I love the production on these records. It's so crisp. You can hear every part. You know.
Yes.
It's like what you want out of a digital recording. It's so clear and perfect. You know.
Exactly. I think that's what I liked about that album precisely, is that it sounds plasticky, like in a sense.
Yeah.
It's like
Totally.
perfect.
Yeah.
But it's so strange also because usually musicians who multi-track their stuff, that it's an aesthetic that I associate with slightly kind of loner bedroom musician type people.
Yeah. He was quite a lonely person, I think, actually.
Right. I imagine, because it's just so funny to see that combined with such an incredible like pop stage persona, such a charismatic
totally.
sort of thing.
Yeah, that's why it's so rare, probably.
Yeah.
It's rare to get a person who can do both of those things, because like songwriting and all that kind of stuff, it is really an introverty thing, and a thing that requires a ton of isolation to do. And he was just always writing. Like, it's estimated he wrote between 500 to 1,000 songs. You don't actually know because a lot of it's in the archives still. There's like a vault, you know, of like Prince stuff that's unreleased. And like, there's like a new album being released this summer, I think. So
right, shit. Wow, cool.
But yeah, he must have spent a lot of time alone. And I think the alchemical, I think he was an alchemist, you know, knowingly or not, but I think probably knowingly. Like, his symbol is this weird fusion of masculine and feminine, and it's this like medieval looking thing, you know. It's astrological also. He was doing all these weird synchy things, like trying to get the like running time of albums to be exactly 60 to fit with the pyramid theme, which goes together with the like end of slavery, because it was his last album after splitting with Warner Brothers or whoever it was. Was it?
Right. Oh wow.
It was his first like self-produced thing on like where no one was telling him what to do.
Amazing. That's
totally in his own studio, all this stuff. Yeah. So
total
cool.
sync magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I know. Like, yeah, that's funny. I think it's one of those things. We've spoken about this so much as well. How there's some of these big name pop people who they're so big and like mainstream that you almost forget that what they're doing is very weird arty stuff, weird kind of alchemical sort of almost underground arty stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked about it before too, about how after you connect with that kind of material personally, there's this weird kind of like reconfiguration of the media landscape where you kind of go back and you're like, oh wow, all these different things were in resonance with the mystery before I had direct contact with the mystery. I just loved these things because they conveyed a shadow of the mystery to me, or a reflection of the mystery to me. And that's the best I had, you know. Now that I have a direct contact with it, I can recognize it in that stuff, and for me, it's been this amazing process of rediscovery. Like, to go back to this Prince album that I was obsessed with when I was a teenager, like early pubescent teenager, you know, and now to hear it like, oh wow, there was real occult wisdom encoded just in the working process of that artist, even, you know, the whole way he approached making art and so on, but also explicitly in a lot of the lyrical content and stuff and imagery and stuff. it's neat. It kind of stitches your life together in a non-linear mandala-like bond of all these different points where I was in contact with the mystery in the center via art, you know, before I did it myself.
Exactly. Yeah, like I mean, with all the Scatman John stuff as well, right? It's like, shit,
Exactly.
that was such a big part of our childhoods in a sense. And then you suddenly look back at it and you watch interviews with him and you're like, huh.
I'm
This
wearing this
guy.
pendant today. The
Oh my God.
yeah.
Wow, where'd you get that? That's amazing.
Jeff Bezos. I bought it off Amazon.
All right. Oh my God. I didn't even know. Let's see. Scatman pendant.
It's actually an AA thing. It's like it represents like the 3 pillars of AA or something. I forget what they are.
Oh, okay.
He was like an alcoholic and like a heroin addict and everything. So I think that's probably why he was wearing it. But it's funny because we noticed it in connection with the hermetic in the tree, you know, because this is totally like an alchemical idea as well.
Yeah, that's funny.
Or just an esoteric idea, you know.
Why? Yeah, why does AA use this? That's so funny.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how they came by it, but you know, Jung was involved in the early history of AA, so there is like a weird connection. The whole process, the whole higher power thing, that was kind of Jung's contribution. So it's trying to encourage. It's like individuation light or something.
Fuck.
You know?
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, right. So I think that's probably where a lot of that stuff comes from in Scatman. a lot of it's like AA wisdom about living in the moment and connecting with your higher self and, you know, all that stuff.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's weird.
Which is it touches me, you know, that guy's life really, that he would do that he would achieve fame finally and then actually use it as a platform to try to share something that was probably one of the most transformative things in his life, you know.
Yeah.
I notice a strong absence of that in the pop landscape at the moment.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of heartfelt art being made that way still, but not really in the big budget space so much, it seems to me. But maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm rapidly aging into the category where I just don't give a shit about popular music anymore. I feel like everything's just a remix of something I already know about. So, you know, that's the point.
Yeah.
I'd rather just work on my own remixes of things I know about.
You're right. It's funny. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. I think I am also at this point where I'm not even aware almost.
Yeah, like I just don't care. I just don't have time or space for it or something.
Yeah.
Keep up with it. Yeah.
Funny.
It used to be easier to do. All I had to do was sit in front of MTV for an hour every day, and I got a little, you know. I feel like now it's. I mean, maybe the equivalent of that's just YouTube autoplay or something. I don't know. How do I just get a blast of like what the kids are listening to these days?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I'd almost be curious to know, like, but I know what you mean. There's something about like Scatman John and other people in that era where there's
First of all, are there any pop stars that are over 50 right now? Like that was a weird thing about that dude, you know?
Yeah.
Just the fact that he could be someone with that life experience in that world, the pop MTV world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly, that's probably part of it. There's that. I don't know that some way in which trauma is integrated into art or something like that. Because like you said, it's this idea of how he was singing about something that had been very important to him. And that appealed to a mass audience. Like there was an audience to, I mean,
yeah, it did.
Of course, yeah, it was sort of.
I mean, a lot of people thought it was lame then, and a lot of people think it's lame now, I guess. But I don't know. It did appeal to the mass audience, and it really appealed to kids, especially.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch interviews with him and to hear that that was like a goal of his. He was trying to appeal to children.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know exactly. I always like. I feel like watching some of the recent um, pop stuff that's being made today before commenting on it, but I do have this sort of like an itch to say that maybe it really has gotten to a point where trauma is harder and harder to sell or harder and harder to integrate in some way. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. Maybe in the 90s, things were sort of good enough in like, in wealthy countries that you could afford to have some trauma in your music. But now
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
there's too much crisis everywhere for people to have trauma in their music.
No, I
Or
think there's something to that.
I don't
There's
know.
just there's less stability overall.
Mm,
Being able to integrate anything sort of presupposes a basic stability in which to do that kind of subtle operation.
yeah.
If the society itself is unstable, you know, you, there's never any kind of firm ground on which to rest in order to solve personal
Yeah.
traumas. You
Yeah.
know, um, I think that's a real situation at the moment,
Mm,
coming out of COVID and all of this. There's a lot of psychological baggage now that needs to be dealt with, and it's not being dealt with because there isn't a basic stability. Part of the
yeah.
issue with COVID was that it showed how unstable all of these systems really are. They're very close to these red lines, and it doesn't take much to push them into these danger zones where suddenly there's supply chain problems or the medical system just can't address people's needs
Yeah.
all of a sudden, or etc. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what I see right now really is just a lot of escapism of the sort that we saw in the 1920s in the United
Right.
States.
Yeah.
There is a weird synchrony
Mm,
here with the 2020s and the 1920s. Um,
mm,
um, I feel it too, and it's like the summer. We all want to just get out and party.
mm.
But, it's not that kind of moment historically, actually.
Yeah.
Um, what we ought to be doing is paying very close attention to deep psychological currents in our civilizations that are
Yeah.
probably becoming, um, but
Yeah. 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 Mm,
or something. I don't know. We ought to be doing. We ought to be
mm,
doing whatever can solve our big psychological collective crisis at the moment, which maybe does
mm,
involve forget about it for a little while. Trauma, it goes through stages like that.
mm, mm.
It's not so normal actually to integrate a trauma immediately after
Mm.
experiencing it. It's pretty normal to want to just run away from it for a while because the
Yeah.
unconscious needs time to chew on it, probably. So I don't know. I don't mean to be so judgmental right off the bat about the human race. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
down on it at the moment or something.
No, I agree. I think like even at a personal level, like I can feel that I'm not in a space at the moment where I could do like sync
Yeah,
videos.
yeah. I keep trying,
Uh,
failing. I've
mm,
recorded, but I just can't bring myself to edit.
mm, yeah, right. I don't know, like and I really feel like it's this strange thing where uh I can see the syncs, but I can't speak them.
Mm,
And there's this artist I like,
yeah.
Rob Loves Earth. He's done he did one of my album arts, and he posted something on Instagram the other day. it's just like this little picture that says something like, the more he sees, the less he talks, or something like this. And it kind of made me think of this, because I feel sometimes like there is this weird thing where if you see too many connections, it completely paralyzes you, or somehow
Yeah.
you somehow need to process it.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you've digested it and you can speak it. And I don't know, I feel like that sometimes it's a bit frustrating, because sometimes you feel you should just push through it and be like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sort of struggling with that at the moment. Don't know how. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Or struggling with related issues or something.
Mm. What did you record? I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I've recorded a few things. I recorded something that I think was about the anima.
Mm.
Just kind of like a not like a media video, but just like a depth psychology video.
Yeah.
And I did another Monster Squad, um, which went okay. It's just that Monster Squad makes me unhappy now when I watch it. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
I can see what it's about more and more clearly each time I watch it, and I don't know. Either the United States is really going to mutate into this weird, horrible fascist something, or it isn't, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe that's a fantasy of mine and other people living in it, you know.
Mm.
Um, but but wherever that's located, the film just does play into that stuff for me. Like when I watch it, it just seems like it's about this. It's about like the possibility of a totalitarian, native totalitarian brew in the United States. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see how else make sense of that movie, and because I'm convinced that it precogged 9/11, it makes me
Mm.
really nervous about other things in it. You know, so and
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm like by watching it I'm gonna gain any real more like with new insight into it or something. You know.
Yeah.
Um, and then that kind of relates now to like a bigger issue for me, which is just like I'm once again going through like a weird shift with like how I relate to the matches and this whole weird process I'm doing, you know.
Mm.
So on the one hand, so first of all, my context recently is like I'm like more and more embedded in this job, you know, my like actual like job, and I've just been spending more and more time there, and I'm getting more and more kind of socially embedded there, um, and all of that stuff has just disconnected me a little bit from the real like hardcore sync practices, you know, which to what we were saying earlier vis-a-vis Prince, you know, these things require a lot of isolation.
Mm. Yeah.
And in the amount of isolated time I have, I'm much more interested now in trying to produce art. You know, I only have so much time. I really want to work on a song, or I want to make a drawing, or I want to, you know, and that involves sync, of course, but
Mm.
it's different than doing these weird ritualistic media analysis things,
Yeah.
or etc. And so I've just been kind of a bit far away from it, really. Um, and just more in my left hemisphere in general, working on this technology project. You know?
Mm.
um, and then someone sent me an image of the Twin Towers burning with a movie poster in front of them in the foreground. And
Mm-hmm.
the movie poster was for this movie Glitter by Mariah
Right.
Carey. And I'd never seen that before, either the movie or that image of the
Yeah.
Twin Towers with the movie poster.
It's crazy.
And the fact that it said glitter, which is like a word unit, you know, or just a word, I guess is what I mean,
Yeah.
that I associate with the projection space. 9/11. You know, because that's
Uh-huh.
the explosion. It was a big glitter bomb. You know, I think I've said that about it before.
Mm.
And so I saw that, and I was just like, "There's no way!" Like the fact that this photograph exists, that someone managed to like snap this, like the two things together, and like, you know, this movie's going to be a massive Red Twins movie.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
watched it and like, wow, it is. Like it's and I just watched it happen all over again, Alan. Like it just happened again. This movie just whoa, like it just like put its weird tentacles over me, and I've been like like my tolerance, I think. This is like my tolerance for Sync had gone way down, and I wasn't ready really, and it kind of it really threw me for a loop, dude. This movie is crazy. It's crazy. And I haven't been able to express to anyone really how crazy it is yet. So I don't know what to do with it. I feel like I probably have to make a video about it. Like maybe it's going to be a talk video.
Mariah Carey.
I'm trying. It's so crazy.
Shit, man.
But yeah, it's fucking nuts. And
watch it.
yeah, you should watch it or something. It's short. It begins most of the activity. Well, I don't know. There's a ton of activity, but a ton of it's just at the very beginning. It opens with a house burning down. It's like a burning building story, like immediately.
Yeah.
Oh
right. Okay.
There is like an explosion of glitter in it that gets overlaid with Mariah Carey's face. Like it forms the weird explosion glitter face. Hold on, let me find it. I'll drop it in the chat. There maybe? Do you have it?
Aha. Yes. Ooh. Fuck.
Yeah. It's terrifying. And it makes no sense. It kind of looks like that might be a crossfade into a scene that then has a bunch of glitter in it. But it isn't. It's just glitter explosions overlaid for no reason at the end of this scene that then cuts into some other thing. So fucking weird. Anyway.
I'm really afraid of these movies, man. Like I
forgot that I ought to be afraid of them. We should be terrified if there's.
It's almost like we should like talk about how scary they are. Like I almost like I have more energy to talk about how scary they are than to talk about them.
Same. I'm just this part of what I'm realizing is like
weird.
This movie destroyed me, but at the same time, there's nothing new in it. That's why it destroyed me. You know what I mean? Like I've seen everything in this movie before.
Yeah.
It's just another Red Twins movie. That's what's so amazing about it. It hits all these amazing notes. Again, it's obvious it's the same thing again, whatever it is. But I don't feel that I'm coming away from it with like a deeper understanding of this thing anymore. You know, there was a period of time in which that was true when I knew less about it. But the kinds of things I don't know about it now are not going to be answered by watching these movies obsessively in this way anymore. I don't think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm interested in actual like statistical questions about it now and things like that, and bigger spiritual concerns that they suggest and so on. Watching the movies, it's just like I suppose it's a bit like like what do you suppose Terence McKenna went through with psychedelic drugs? You know, was there a point where he was like, I don't need to be tripping all the fucking time, all the time? You know, maybe we reach a point like that with media sync. You know, I don't know. At the same time, like this movie. I want to make a beautiful video about it, so it's good that I saw it, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like I can make a radical rewind out of this Mariah Carey movie, you know?
Cool. Yeah.
Something, but...
Yeah. You know, God, I know. It's funny. It's funny. I know. I feel like making beautiful videos about movies. It's just that it's this thing where the more overwhelming the movie is, the more paralyzed I am. It becomes very, very difficult to make it.
Well, because you can see there's something holy in it. and you want to do that justice, you know. So it's like a heavy artistic task. It's always hard for me to approach it in a playful way. I wish I could do that, but I always feel like it's so weighty. It's like this huge stone that I'm trying to put into place in this giant thing I'm trying to build.
Yeah. And it's funny, you know, like I've been
or something else is trying to build with me as the slave labor, you know. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. That is a tiring feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a like a loss of autonomy. You feel like your will becomes completely merged with this higher will. And of course, like sure, this is, you know, it's the whole idea of sacrifice in Christianity and in other places like that. But I do feel like questioning that or being a little alchemical about it. I feel like you need to balance that out with some sort of Leo style will of your own as well. You know, I was reading this playwright recently. I've been really enjoying, called Martin Krimp, and I told you yesterday I read a play of his where he prefaces the play by saying this was written on the 10th of September 2001.
This is so crazy.
And it's funny because it's almost like he saw that he had to preface it with that. Like somehow he knew he had to preface it that the play is all about this little child who's been sort of, it's hard to know what's happening, but he's sort of climbing up this tower, and inside this tower
this child. This was so weird, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Glitter. You know, the house burns down when Mariah is a little girl. So it's like her and her mom, you know. The mother is like a drunk, and she's smoking, and the cigarette lights the house on fire, you know. You know, and then it gets wrapped into this weird like power line story, because then it becomes like, you know, it becomes her singing, and the trauma becomes, it's another trauma becomes the art movie, you know.
Man, it's scary to even
photograph depicts 9/11 ultimately, like literally. So, you know, on if you go to the Wikipedia page on Glitter, they have that image there. The Twin Towers and the billboard for Glitter. This movie about art trauma in a burning building and a man, it's just crazy.
I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I pulled it back to Glitter because it seems like it's the same story almost.
No, absolutely. I mean, and this idea of the child in a burning house, like I've seen that in many movies.
Yeah.
And it is frightening when you start seeing like what is it about children in burning buildings, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it relates in a way to like the Hansel and Gretel in the witch's oven. The witch's oven. That's a weird 9/11 projection adjacent thing, I think. It was like the witch's oven, because there were kids that were in the towers, sure.
Yeah.
And that's a story about greed, right? Because it's like a cookie house or something. He lures them with their basic animal hungers in a way.
Yeah.
So being a trade center, I feel like it's natural. It's really it's related to a Hansel and Gretel thing, weirdly. That's why we see weird witch stuff in these movies. There's weird witch stuff in Glitter. It's like straight up, like there's a witch in the background again, like, you know.
That's strange. No, I know. Like, I think if I remember correctly, in this play, it's like this tower has a cupboard in it or something, some sort of there's a place in this tower that includes Yeah, it's got like everything that you could want is in this tower. There's like
Wow. Okay.
there's like all of the there's Beethoven sonatas, there's Manhattan, there's Paris, everything.
It's like Dante's Tower. Sorry,
Oh
Dante's
right.
Inferno. We have Dante's Tower. Joe Dante, Gremlins 2. That's
Oh
kind of what
right.
his tower is like. It's like
Yeah,
this weird
exactly.
cornucopia. Like everything, the whole world is in this tower in a way. This is
Yeah,
World Trade
yeah.
Center. That's what it was. It
Yes.
was like that. It had restaurants in it. It had hotels in it. It had retail concourses and all of this business. And it had people from all over the world in it. Artists had residencies there and stuff. So it
Fuck.
was a
Right.
whole world.
It is that exactly. It's a cornucopia. It's a complete cornucopia of like all of the good stuff is kind of
Yeah.
crammed into this
Yeah.
place.
I think that's what New York City is also. So
Right. Yeah.
they made the Twin Towers like this hyper New York object. It was the maximum density of the whole world compressed into a point in the middle of the city that also is like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It represented like a singularity point in that kind of way.
Fuck.
Everything coming together in this weird tower, vertical thing, stacked simultaneously.
Right. Exactly. It's a bunch of different worlds, but they're all like literally on top of
Layered.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Huh.
Layered. It's just like the burning image in layers or something, burning away the layers to reveal what was hid. I think it's just becoming that Blake poem, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell.
I keep thinking of the tarot recently as well, uh, in that when you're asking something in a tarot reading, you can ask like a question. I don't know, will I find love or whatever? And you will get an answer in the cards. Now, if you ask again because you want more clarification or you just want to know more about it, you will ask and it will just add some more stuff, but it won't add that much because your reading is there. Your reading is in front of you. And then if you ask for more cards and more cards and more cards, there's a point where it really starts feeling like stifled. Like clearly
Yeah.
you're not asking the same question anymore. You're not really asking, will I find love? You're asking something else. You're asking something like, I'm not satisfied or something, or I'm confused, or it's become a different question. So it can't give you the answer anymore. And I sometimes wonder if something similar is happening with movies, in the sense that I keep watching movies and after a while it feels like I've asked the question. I don't know what question it is. I don't even know what question I'm asking. Some question that is being asked. But it's almost like I've just got the same answer so many times that there's something in the movies that's almost becoming aggressive, like saying, just stop watching us. We've told you already,
Right.
just kind of get away or something.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that sort of double intention on it since the beginning, really.
Right.
I think that's why, like, when I was going through Hellraiser, I kept thinking about it in terms of like this cursed object, or like a tomb that was being disturbed, or
Yeah.
It's kind of beckoning you in, and at the same time saying, "Don't look at me. I'll curse you forever if you do."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that seems to be a vibe with it. Which is one of the things about synchronicity that I feel is very it's just not represented about it enough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a lot of like, it's the universe telling you you're on the right path, etc., and that can be true about it too. But sometimes it's ambiguous at best. Sometimes it does seem to be like aggressive, like you're saying.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something about how this sort of reading, the reading we're doing of it now, of Sync,
Yeah.
is slightly less. It's slightly scarier because it's not just because it's aggressive, but because when you take that aggression seriously, you really are encountering another thing behind the screen. Like
Yeah,
there
there's a
is
real
literally
monster back there or
it's
something.
exactly there is literally something. I think that if you take the exclusively sort of positive thinking sort of sync vision, you can very easily switch it off.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, if it's just saying things you like, you can almost pretend that it's no one, that
yeah,
nothing is happening, because I don't know why, but I just get this feeling that somehow the positive reading of sync is easier to not truly believe. You can
yeah,
play around with it,
yeah. Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
but you can't. It's almost like belief requires that sort of like
Well, because there's this,
fear.
there's yeah, yeah, yeah. There's this idea that like people who believe these sorts of things believe it because it's like wishful thinking. It
Mm,
helps them organize their lives and give meaning and sense to things that
mm,
otherwise would be chaotic or scary. Um, and I'm not refuting that, of course. I mean, I do feel like it fulfills those functions for me sometimes, and so on, you know.
yeah.
Um, but it also can totally terrify me, and those aren't, you know, there isn't really an idea so much that um, people would want to believe things that make them unhappy
Mm,
or that have practical negative consequences in their lives or so on. And synchronicity has been those things for me as well at different times. You know,
mm,
it shifts around, um, which makes me think that it's just bigger than any one of those things. You know,
yeah.
those are all aspects of it. But that's what it's like when you're interacting with a living thing. So that's what I think that it teaches me about it overall, is that it's whatever it is, it's alive. Maybe it's a reflection of myself very personally, and I
Mm,
catch these weird reflections of it in the movies, and but that's enough, you know, because whatever I am must be so, you know, if
mm,
I'm catching a little window of what that is in those moments, then I am so deep and weird and alien that, you know, um,
yeah.
actually, it's even worse that it's me. It'd be better if it was some isolated, weird alien thing, but it isn't. I'm clearly connected with it. You know, it's already
Exactly.
in me. It already is me. Whatever it is. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that can feel amazing, but it can also feel horrific, like body horrific almost. You know, um,
Yeah.
that's what I'm interested in, like the transfiguration. Right, Christ achieves transparency with the image of divinity, but
Mm.
that's not just like going to be a blissed out thing. That's going to be like an Akira moment as well. That's going to be like total, like being ripped asunder by the. Because what does it mean to be transparent with eternity or totality or whatever that ends up meaning? You know, it
Mm,
means you're everything at once and kind of nothing at once.
mm,
You know, um,
mm.
that's got to be an extremely. There are, there's a pain in that. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah, I like what you said about it's alive. Like, I think that's the key. That's the key. The thing is, if you only see it as a positive thing, then you aren't really seeing it as something alive,
Right.
because nothing alive is so mathematical and
Yeah.
one-dimensional.
Yeah. 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 Your
Like,
cats will scratch and bite you. You know, like
right,
there's
right,
yeah.
right, right. Yeah, and that is it's such a strange thing as well because it's sort of weirdly so it's weirdly humbling for you and for God as well in a
Yeah.
weird way because
Yeah.
suddenly you
Yeah. Yeah.
realize that the divine also is alive in the sense that it has like the same kind of things that other alive things have, like mood swings or changes in opinion, or like, suddenly it's like it wants to like just joke around or whatever, right? There are these weird qualities in the gods. Like
Yeah.
the gods have these weird, super like mundane qualities to them. And at the same time, it's humbling for yourself, because it's when you see those qualities that truly proves that they are alive, and therefore that you are humbled in their presence, in a sense, or in the community. You suddenly become aware of the ecosystem that you exist in, an enormous sort of ecosystem of
Yeah, you hit it
souls or
right there.
whatever.
I was about to say, as you were describing that, I was totally trying to relate it back to like cybernetic ideas, because what you're describing there, it seems basically continuous with the idea of like a system meta-system relationship or something. Like, it's almost like we're articulating subjectively what it's like to be a part within this greater whole. And like, the greater whole partakes of these mundane aspects because we supply them. We're like neurons in this big thing.
Right.
Um,
Oh, right. Fuck. Yeah.
we are the interior. We are the psychological interior environment of the god.
Right.
We are the unconscious of the god in a weird way.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
maybe it really is deeply symmetrical in a funny way like that. I don't know. The gods are in our unconscious, but we're the unconscious of God. I wonder if Jung ever said anything like that.
Huh.
Seems like the kind of thing he might have cryptically uttered somewhere. I do think there are probably like marginal areas with Jung where he brushed up against things that aren't clearly articulated in his clinical schemata anywhere. Things like in the Red Book and so on that are pieces of the puzzle that he didn't manage to then integrate into the academic reformulation of all that stuff. I'm increasingly interested in those areas, because it's just like maybe there's an interesting door could be opened there. I wish I had my copy of the Red Book with me. I'll try to get it shipped out.
Is it away? Right.
It's in Montana in storage.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's so huge. It's not the kind of book you can just like throw in your backpack.
Yeah. Yes.
There's a reader version of it, I guess. Maybe I should grab that.
Yeah. No. That's what I've got actually. Yeah. Which is I don't think I've ever seen like all of the illustrations in the Red Book. I should
cool.
like
have
a look at them sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, they're so cool. There's so many cool ones. I have fond memories of investigating the Red Book in front of my parents' fireplace in West Virginia. It was just the perfect thing, like alchemical flames, reading about Jung's journey to hell. Or was it Christ's journey to hell? Same thing, I mean, I don't know, dude. There's so many aspects to it. Like, on the one hand, I'm more convinced than ever that there's a real statistical effect to do with this 9/11 sync stuff. Like, I think it's... I shouldn't be able to make predictions like that. You know what I mean? I shouldn't be able to look at that picture of glitter against the Twin Towers and say, I know there's going to be... It's going to be a shot of Mariah Carey's face with a bunch of weird glitter over it, and from the kind of the same angle as that weird explosion face, just like in Moon. There sure fucking is though, like plus a million other things. Anyway, where is this? It's really early on in this. It's like a scene in a nursery, or it's like it's at the orphanage, I guess. After the house, right after the house burns down. Here it is. We're like 8:41, 8:42-ish, 8:43.
Okay.
You'll see she's kind of standing with a woman
Yes.
This is Mariah Carey as like a little kid.
Ah.
She's house has just burned down. She's holding, and her mother has abandoned her basically, and she's holding this weird little cat, right? So it's kind of like an S right off the bat. If you let it advance a little bit, eventually we'll land on this these two little girls at the table with some blocks. Do you see that?
At like 48, 49. Yes.
851-ish is where I'm looking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see in this.
Oh, right. Jesus, they have like two towers of blocks.
Yeah, there's two towers with blocks. One of the towers, man, it's so resolution here.
Right.
But anyway, one of those towers has the one next to the girl with the blue bandana.
Mm-hmm.
The blue and black and white. That's all color space accurate to N, right? It's very nice.
Okay.
She's next to the tower that has a man in a top hat on the top block. I don't know if you can see that little black spot up there.
Oh, yes.
A man in the top.
Yeah.
And a B, or it's like an 8 or something, but it's it's one of those shapes.
Yes. Yeah.
Beneath it, the other block has a red, or excuse, the other tower has a red base, and it's next to the girl dressed in red. Also behind her, there's like a horse. There's a little toy horse, like that you'd ride. The weird little horse.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. Like it's like
yeah.
I can't believe it. But
I find it's insane how people in movies have these hunches sometimes to do weird symmetrical things. Like, okay, so we'll have the blue tower next to the blue clothes and the red tower next to the red clothes, and we'll position them in this way. And like and obviously, like there seems to be also some sort of a hunch that you should put the red one on the left and the blue one on the right and stuff like that.
Hunch, yeah. It seems like it proceeds intuitively.
Like it's interesting. Like exactly, there's this sort of like it's so weird. It's like the event in the future is constellating itself through the actions of the people in the past. The people in the past are sort of symbolically emulating that event artistically as much as they can. Like red thing on the left, blue thing on the right.
Yeah, they're performing symbolic, or it's it does relate probably to this idea of a play or a performance and the ritualistic aspects of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm dropping a couple pictures into the chat now. I found this stuff. Here is just a nice high-res grab of this thing. It's really obscene to me that there's this man in a top hat there. I can't wrap my head around it. I've never even seen a block that is like that in real life, Since when do they make blocks that have little dudes with top hats on it?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
I guess that just must be a thing that exists, but I've never fucking heard of that. Have you?
Weird. Let's see. Yeah, like a weird sort of Scatman thing.
Yeah.
He has a mustache too. It looks like it's the top hat and
It's a perfect weird Mr. N thing. She's also, her shirt says baseball, I'm now realizing. And I think I even have a baseball bat on my stupid projection map, Black, white stripes, just like the antenna. I guess her bandana's not blue so much as it is a green, but that tower sure is blue compared to the red on the other.
Well, it's definitely sort of cold colors versus warm colors or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a crop of the weird horse thing behind the obvious S.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Well, somehow that gets pulled in. Like, this match really blew me away.
And also her bandana is got like that's strange. It's got like weird eyes or something, or like floaty sort of tool eyes.
Yeah, it does. And that's the eye tower.
Eye tower, yeah.
It's like an eye.
Yeah, the eye and then the animal tower, the horse. blood. Right, exactly. So it's like it's vision, it's like perception, and then the material kind of animal blood thing. Funny.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot in this, man. I mean, there's redhead TVs with numeroglyphs and etc. It's just it reminds me a lot of Hellraiser somehow, which is insane. You know, like how can this movie remind me of Hellraiser? Glitter by Mariah Carey has nothing to do, but there's some deep stylistic thing in it that
Yeah.
relates it. It's the constellation, I guess.
That's
it really reminds me of Hellraiser 3
oh.
You know? I'm trying to find the thing at the end, which is her with a red rose in front of the mirror, receiving a letter.
Oh, right.
There it is. Sorry, you were about to say something.
This is why I'm afraid of watching these movies, because I know that once I watch these movies, I can't not make a video about
I know. I'm burdened with glitter now. I have to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
One way or another.
Yeah, exactly. I've realized like I've been avoiding watching like family entertainment because because I know that the second I watch something like that, exactly like you said, it becomes impossible not to make a video. And let's see.
She's getting a letter. She's about to read a letter in
Right.
with this rose in front of the mirror.
Oof, yeah.
With an explosion bouquet on the extreme left, you know.
Ooh.
Right. And this image, you know, the fact that I could have, I you know, I could have told you this image. I could have told you everything about this image. Those swans back there, the black and white against the grid pattern, that's right where the end antenna would go. It's a big, nice global match. It's just, you know. And anyway, I don't have to convince you. This is like there's just so much of this in this movie, again and again and again.
This image is scary as well. Like you say, it does.
What the fuck is this image?
Like a horror movie aesthetic almost. Like I can't, like you say, right? it seems it's unsettling. It's unsettling in a way The Room was for me. Tommy Wiseau's The Room, because
it's very like that. It's got that energy. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to describe it. There's something it's just something very numinous about the basic look of it, though, and the way the camera moves, and there's a lot of kind of darkness in the shots or something. A lot of areas of shadow, and these interiors that all look like they're kind of like they're not really lived in. They look like ads or apartments or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's an 80s production aesthetic in this, which this movie is doing deliberately. It's a period thing. The Room was doing just kind of weirdly, accidentally or something. But I feel like it is like it's an almost pornographic aesthetic, almost.
Yeah,
it's very smooth moving. I feel like I expect lots of crossfades rather than hard cuts or something. And do you know what I mean? Like there's an elliptical quality to it to me, hypnotic quality.
I think, God, I wonder if, like, I don't know what it is, but like with the other shot with the two girls, like clearly, people were making artistic decisions here based on shapes and colors. Right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, framing Mariah Carey inside the mirror is something that's done obviously intentionally, right? It's like, let's have her in the mirror, right? And let's have the rose, and she's opening the letter. Like, it almost feels like when you start playing with shapes and colors in movies, you don't know what you're unlocking, I think. I think because
absolutely, yeah, 100%. I'm going to send you an image in support of this thesis.
Let's see.
Oh, I gotta get it. I gotta find it first.
Because I feel like you make an image like this, and by making things look nice in terms of symmetry and shapes and colors, you're immediately turning it into some sort of an archetypal image, right?
Exactly.
Because things, you're turning every frame of this movie into some sort of a religious image without realizing it, because you're making
This
everything.
is such a fascinating aspect of this stuff from an art theoretic perspective, because it kind of unites like formalism and meaning. We often think like, okay, there are like two ways to make a picture. You can make something abstract, which is like geometric and colors, and that has no meaning. That's a pure like formal exercise sometimes. And meanwhile, you have like representational art, and that's where meaning and symbolism and stuff can happen.
Yeah.
But Sync kind of shows that actually, if you reduce yourself just to playing with shapes and colors and geometry, that those things can actually end up in weird structural ways, maybe encoding semiotic information,
Yeah.
which is just like this weird stuff with the pyramids being in these precise ratios and so on. It's an unexplored region in art, I think, for modern eye anyway.
Yeah.
This area where those two things connect. But do you see this image?
Yeah. What is this?
This is a major recurring object in this movie, because these are the doors to Mariah Carey's boyfriend/producer's apartment in this movie. We see these over and over again, and it's just like two giant like aluminum rectangles with one of them with this red spot.
Yeah.
And we tend to see it from this angle on the interior of the apartment, but if you were entering the apartment, it would be correctly handed.
Oh fuck. That's scary. Yeah. Yeah.
That
that's
is so fucking weird. That's that's one that you would put right next to that image of Forrester from Gremlins 2 pointing at the abstract version of this that has the rectangles and the little red dot. This one just perfectly conforms to that template.
That's scary. That's almost like it's almost like it's funny. It's almost like psychotic. It almost feels like movies were having a psychotic break because of the closeness of the event. It's like the movie just can't help screaming this image again and again. And everyone is involved in it. Like I don't know. It's crazy.
I wonder if anyone who might be watching this someday can understand why this can be like a bad trip. This is just creepy. That image is creepy, and I feel kind of sick for having seen it almost or something. I always feel that way with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I never know.
Because see, I think the thing with shapes and colors as well is that on the one hand, when you start making these choices,
I'm eating Tic Tacs because I feel gross. I'm like, why am I doing this? Maybe I feel icky.
Purify.
Yeah.
But it's. I think it's because when you choose something like this, you choose to put Mariah Carey doubled inside a mirror and have a rose, or have when you do things like this, usually it's because it looks good to you. I think it's such it's such an intuitive, unrational thing. Especially the thing with the two towers of blocks, for example.
God,
it's just like, okay, let's have the girls sit at either side of the table and let's build blocks that kind of match their clothes. Maybe there was even some really cold, calculative kind of business reason, in the sense of we want the blocks to match their clothes because otherwise it'll look ugly and the audience will be put off or something. We need the blocks to. So maybe there's some really dumb reason behind it, but it's almost like when you start doing things like that, you're doing it frame by frame. You're not you're not considering the overarching effect that all of those frames will have together.
Yeah, that's what makes it truly a causal, right. I guess, or yeah.
Exactly, because then you watch it as a viewer and you pay attention to these things in a synchy way, and you realize these shapes and colors are forming a pattern. They are. Now, the people who paid attention to these things frame by frame probably didn't, they weren't aware of that.
Sure, they were not aware of this. Yeah.
And so it's like, whatever was giving them that hunch to put this there and move this to the left.
I mean, it's set in New York.
Right. Okay.
And was shot in New York. I mean, it's very much like a New York movie, you know.
I'm thinking also like this scene with the letter, where she's opening the letter in front of the mirror. Obviously, like without having watched the movie, you could already see that this is a real like rabbit hole of an image symbolically.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's opening a message, but she's standing in front of herself. It seems like she's delivering the message to herself, and like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is this? Like,
it's a letter from her boyfriend / producer who has just been murdered at this point in the movie.
Okay, right.
It's a big N Tower collapse resonating scene. There's fedoras, trench coats. Like a gun happens and this guy like falls over, you know. And then so this is a letter from that guy to her.
Yeah.
I'll try to find that area because it's truly, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's like something I'm in like Smooth Criminal or something. It has like a weird noir aesthetic.
Yeah.
Twins.
Who's this guy? I like the.
So this is the guy that kills the boyfriend / producer. He's like a rival producer, and he's angry that this guy like stole Mariah Carey from him or something. And and so he pulls out a gun. So he's a man with a smoking gun and fedora and that belt and that coat and and you know it's like a murder scene. So it's all in that space, and so that just connects then to the letter that Mariah gets is from the guy that this guy kills.
Okay, yeah, right. Huh.
Guy. See a lot of this guy. You know, it's meant to be kind of like a plot twist. I think that this guy ends up killing this other dude. Like you're not supposed to see it coming, but so they show you a fair amount of this guy. And he's always wearing these weird hats. Like I don't think you ever see him not in this weird hat. Maybe just once or twice, like in a bar scene, maybe here or something. But yeah, usually he's got a hat on. So yeah, anyway, I guess I'll leave it at that. I mean, I could pull out a million more things from this thing. There's a bunch of weird stuff on TVs. You know, I just live for these weird TV shots.
Yeah.
It is for some reason, but
man, but like
Ghosts.
It's hilarious to me, man, that we're directed to these kinds of fucking movies, like the Mariah Carey tie-in movie.
You know I know this movie is like a joke. You know, it's like literally like
like.
Her acting is pretty bad, you know, so it's a target for mockery.
I sometimes like it's just funny how it configures that way, because it's like these movies are so powerful. These like the trashier it is, almost the more powerful it is. Totally. And then the problem with that is that that's not a problem, but it's like you see these movies and you feel like this insane calling to tell the world about it in some way.
Yeah.
But you can't, because no one is going to watch this movie.
I know. No.
no one knows it. Like I have videos on my channel that I'm really happy with, which are for like bad movies that no, just
Same.
not even cult, oh, it's bad and it's famous bad.
No,
No,
just
like
obscure, unknown.
just
crap.
yeah.
Like
And
like the fucking Iron Eagle series.
what's
Gawk off. Such a dumb. Like they're full of weirdness.
the Iron Eagle series?
Iron Eagle.
Right,
I've got a
I'm
video
looking,
about them.
I'm looking at the
Somewhere.
posters. I
Yeah.
love the aesthetic. And that's the
Iron
other thing, right? It's like in order for people to understand what I'm saying, I need to use the word bad movie. I
Yeah.
understand what it means. Sure, it's a bad movie. At the same time, I watch this Iron Eagle poster and I'm like, it 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 moves me. This sort of bad aesthetic is incredible. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Something about it that's sort of like
Well,
religious
yeah,
to me.
it is because it's very like pure fantasy in a way.
Mm,
It's not
yeah,
concerned with being good, and fantasy's that way, you know.
yeah, yeah.
There's something about it that's just very intense to me. That kind of aesthetic. Yeah, it's so. It's hard to describe. There's an authenticity in it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Somehow, it's like the
Yeah.
least authentic thing ever, but somehow that gives it a
Yeah,
transcendent authenticity.
it's almost also like because it's trying to belong to the canon of good movies in the sense that it's I'm just looking at one of the Iron Eagle posters here, and it's trying to be an action movie poster, right? I'll actually send it in the chat.
Oh, cool.
And let's see. So, right, the thing with this image, it's not going for a
Yeah,
sort
this
of
is the one. It's a match, by the way.
right. Yeah, it's got this sort of explosion on the left and
Yeah.
twin, yeah, twin
God, I
airplanes.
remember this movie. This is one of the ones I think that's in the stack of VHSs at the Circle K, actually.
Okay,
in Bill and
right.
Ted. Bill and
Oh,
Ted will
right.
direct you towards Iron Eagle. That's the only reason I know about it, because it's so
Hmm.
dumb and obscure. I never would have fucking heard of this thing otherwise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. This image. Jesus.
Because this image,
The aviator glasses. It's got
Yeah.
two planes in the sky, one for each tower. And if you look at the logo, there's two planes on there too.
yeah, two planes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, is
It's
there a
it's it's.
missile per plane? I think there's a missile seeking each plane.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's true. Twin missiles, twin planes. Anyway, he's so martied up in his red and blue. This like red shirt, blue jeans thing. It must have been like a patriotic thing in the 80s. Like make him look American hero, you know? Red, white, and
Yeah.
blue. Got the white sneakers, blue jeans,
Yeah.
red. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's on the logo too. He's dressed like the logo. It's the same palette.
Yeah. He's dressed like the logo, exactly.
It's definitely like 4th of July movie or something. It's
Yeah.
You know.
And I think what's sort of moving about this is that it's obviously
God's light.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like halo of light, like behind their heads.
Yeah, and it looks like they're standing in some sort of like just plain studio, just like a fucking like, and it
Yeah, it's like they're standing in front of a painting.
yeah like
Image. That's so weird.
right. That's see, it's just it's a weird image. Like it's not, if you stood this next to any big blockbuster Hollywood poster, it would stand out because
Yeah.
it isn't attaining the level of mainstreamness that the mainstream aesthetic has.
Yeah, that's right. It's
But at
like
this
obviously gonna be a terrible movie, you know? You can
right,
tell this. Yeah.
it's like it's trying to do that. It's trying to have that Hollywood aesthetic,
Yeah.
and it isn't getting it.
It's
But at the same
imitating
time,
something. That's
yeah,
something I find interesting about it. It's just a
exactly.
big thing that's trying to imitate some other thing,
Mm,
you know?
mm. Yeah, yeah.
In this case, it's specifically cloning Top Gun. It's not even just like generally cloning.
Right, yeah.
This is actually a knockoff. It's like as Critters is to Gremlins or whatever.
Mm, mm.
Um,
But then at the same time, it's like there are exactly that's what makes it sit in this weird zone, because there are other things, there are other movie posters that also
yeah,
don't
well,
look
there's
mainstream.
a projection space to it, you know. Like
Mm.
that's my brain is like trying to understand. Wait, that's not Tom Cruise there. It's suggesting Tom Cruise, you know.
Uh-huh.
Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
projective zone. It they
Right. The movie itself is symbolic. It's already symbolic from the start because this is symbolizing Tom Cruise,
exactly. Yeah,
etc.,
that's a
etc.
symbol of Tom. That's a symbol for Tom Cruise. Exactly. This
So
is like an
the
avatar of Tom Cruise that we're experiencing here.
right. So the movie is already from the beginning symbolic in its very existence, in its very choice of of imitation. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in a way, Glitter is doing the same thing because it's imitating this '80s stuff. It's trying
uh
to imitate Mariah Carey in the '80s. She's simulating a past version of herself.
right. Right. Oh, fuck. Yeah. God. These movies, they don't know what they're doing.
No, they can't know. Yes. No. They seem like they know though.
Mm,
Sometimes. You know what I
mm,
mean? Or that
yeah.
something knows
Yeah. Yeah.
because I mean I don't know. I've gone through different opinions with this. I wonder what you think about this lately. But I'm currently of the opinion that this stuff is really not happening in the way of like a what we would imagine to be like a quote unquote natural phenomenon. You know,
Aha.
what are we talking about here? Obviously, everything is natural, but I just mean
Right.
in the
Right.
sense of it's not really just like a stream or a gust of wind or something,
Okay.
uh,
Right. Yeah.
or magnets and shards. But you know, it's interesting because it has those aspects to it. But
Mm, mm,
what I see more and more, I think, as my heart or something has just been ready to accept this more and more, is that it's clearly artistically rendered. Like
mm,
it is authored, and so
mm.
that suggests an intelligence, and I think it is somehow. But so I was thinking lately, like I don't know, this is just kind of like a pothead insight, so let's
Mm.
try it on for size. Like I was thinking about time scales, you know, and
Mm.
about just sequences of events. Because in electronics development, I think we've talked about this before. You know, you have like parallel versus serial processing,
Right.
um, and so you can do a thing where you have like just a single processor. You know, processor one CPU can only execute one instruction at a time, um, and so if you want to have a program or something that seems like it's doing multiple things at the same time, like playing back a movie and responding to cursor input or something, you know,
Aha.
um,
Okay.
it actually technically it's not doing those things at the same time. It's doing a little bit of one and then a bit of the other, and then
Mm.
and it's alternating them so fast that at our perceptual rate, they
Okay.
seem to be happening all at once. These days, we actually do have parallel processors. We have like dual and quad core CPUs that can actually do two things at once. But that's not most devices, actually. My vape is charging up the oven and monitoring the button for presses. It seems to me that it's doing that all at once, but it's not. It's just some simple alternating discrete states rapidly.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a weird thing to do with perception. It's the same way a movie works, right? A movie is not motion. It's discrete, still things. But at this rate, it becomes vivified in this weird way, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was thinking about the fact that, like, things that are actually happening in an order appear to us at our native temporal scale to be occurring simultaneously.
I see. Yeah. Oh, fuck. That's crazy. Yeah.
We all ran the race and we all won at the same time. Well, no, actually, if we went back on video and looked at it precisely, we'd see people did cross the line in an order, and there's still an order. It's just that that order became so fine, grained temporally, that we couldn't detect it naturally, given the rate at which we process information, see? And so I was thinking, okay, what if there's a hive mind? And a hive mind is going to be operating at a different temporal scale, probably, because it's maybe paying attention to slower, longer range patterns. It's like, what registers as an event to the hive mind?
Yeah.
It's not every little bit of thing that's happening in the neurons. That's noise. That's just minutia. What's going to get the attention of the hive mind, what's going to register as an event for it, is going to be a big collective thing where all the neurons are firing simultaneously. All the individuals in the collective are experiencing it all at once, right? Maybe like 9/11. But you see, that would mean then that from the standpoint of the collective, 9/11 and the creation of Back to the Future might have been things that were happening at the same time. From the point of view of the collective, they were happening at the same time because
wow, fuck, that's crazy.
Everybody saw that movie. Everybody saw 9/11, and it was just 20 years. What's that to the collective? That's nothing. It's operating at this much larger scale,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It kind of sent me for a weird loop. Like maybe it really, what we're seeing really are the authorship of the collective, and from the collective standpoint, it could know about it because it was happening at once. It was happening just at once as it was making its contributions. If art is always a summation of individual and collective contribution, then it was making a contribution that was about what it was going through. It was already going through 9/11 when it made those decisions.
Oh, fuck,
It was happening to it in real time from its perspective. So there's no paradox, really. It's just an issue of rates of information processing.
Yeah. Fuck.
Isn't that
No, I know. Yeah, fuck. That's crazy. Yeah. No, I'm kind of heading in that direction as well. Recently, I think. Yeah. It's hard to even put into words. Like, exactly. I think there is definitely, it seems like some sort of interlocking. There is some sort of interlocking, some insane interlocking between levels.
Yeah.
Right? There are things operating at, like you say, at some sort of a weird level that has nothing to do with us as individuals, but that has to do with us as individuals. But it's like, it's completely, it's like dimensional locks where there are different, exactly, there is some sort of a dimension where there is some aspect of things that is happening in ways that are completely different to what we're perceiving, but is somehow interlocked with what we are perceiving. and vice versa, and like it's just exactly it all feels really complicated.
Yeah, it's all evidence though that we're really connected in this weird
Mm,
psychic system that's like that
mm,
somehow.
mm, mm.
I mean, we obviously are, because if you look at history, you can see that big groups go through these weird cycles, um, all kinds of weird cycles. Just fashion, is
Mm.
evidence of this.
Yeah,
What music is popular versus what isn't, etc. There are shared moods that we have, obviously.
yeah.
Um, and good luck trying to change those moods if you're an individual, you know.
Mm, mm.
Everyone's really into disco right now, but I'm a metal guy. Well, too bad. I
Mm.
don't, it. So they really are properly transcendental that way. That's the proof of it. There are these
Yeah,
trends that you can't affect as an individual, and yet
yeah,
the trend doesn't exist without individuals. The whole point is that there's so many people that are all doing it together. These group things or effects are so
yeah.
poorly understood, and I feel that it's one of those areas people don't want to understand it that well because it's very humiliating for the ego.
Uh,
uh,
right. Yeah.
I think we're far more. I've just noticed in myself recently, in social groups and stuff, like it's really hard to resist those currents in a group.
Mm.
Um, weird dynamics that just funnel behavior in these ways. They totally have a momentum to them. And if you
Yes.
resist them, you feel it. There are consequences to resisting them in the social system.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
good consequences sometimes. But
Mm.
um, it's definitely a factor. It's hard to be exposed to something that your culture doesn't have a way to relate to broadly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just hard always, I think, no matter what it is.
Mm.
Um, and I just feel a tension with that still in my life.
Mm.
It's like things are going well at work, etc. I like the projects I'm working on. But I kind of know that like this is not really there's absolutely some here. And I wish that I had money, support, time to prove it. I think
Yeah.
I could, and that fact just it's in my brain like a nail. I'm like, no, you could do this. You could automate detection and counting of some of these things in these movies. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
making it more complicated than it is. Like, because I often think there's just this basic color distribution thing. That would be an easy thing to count. Make a little algorithm that would count that.
Mm.
Just take each frame, kind of blur it out, do some weird, I don't know, reverse histogram thing or something. I'm sure it's not that hard. Whatever. Figure out where the color centers of energy are with all the colors.
Yeah.
And then if there is such a thing, we could just show it. That probably wouldn't be that hard to do. So but the fact is, I don't actually have time, I think,
Mm.
to do a thing like that, or I don't have the will to do it, or something, or maybe I'm afraid to do it. I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, I'm not sure what that would achieve anyway.
Mm.
I think fundamentally, it's pretty simple. Like I just maybe feel the same way. I'm annoyed that there isn't more like recognition about this stuff because
Mm.
I don't know, it just depresses me. I don't want to live in a world where there's a story this incredible that everybody's just sleeping on because of reasons or whatever. Like
Yeah.
this is unreal what's happening here. Like there's totally some weird thing going on with remote perception and like group collective perception and
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
that interests me. It's interested me my whole life. And I feel like, wow, here's like the first thing where it really seems like there's really maybe that I've seen in my life where I'm like, wow, there's really maybe something going on, and I don't know. It's just I find myself a bit bitter with it lately, or something. You know, I'm like, I just feel like I'm constantly pushing this boulder up a hill. Like, why? You know, what's
Yeah.
it good for? Like, at this point, I've said everything I have to say about it at the level of like, hey, this is really happening. Look at all these
Yeah.
reasons why it's happening. Like, I think I can make like more concise formulations of that and so on, and make the, you know, there's a lot of stuff yet to do with that. I'm not saying like I've done everything possible, but I just mean in terms of like the naive fantasy of like, I'm going to do something with it that's then going to lead to some effect in the world, you know.
Yeah.
It's tricky because it seems like it's predicting that it's going to have some big effect, you know. I don't think that's just something I'm imagining about it. It seems to think that it's going to be this big opening of the letter someday. You're all going to
Right.
get a message, you know.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I'm just rambling here, really.
No,
I
I
just don't
don't
know where to
know.
put any of it. I don't know where to place it. I want to build a church still, but that's not a thing I can do. What is that? Why do I have an impulse to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mean like run a church. I just mean like build a physical like temple somehow. You know, that stupid thing.
Yeah.
It's like people. I feel somehow personally. I feel like these images are like precious gems being like lost in like a bunch of dirt or something. It's my job to recover them and put them on a shelf. You know. I feel like glitter is in a holy museum someday. You know. I want. I don't know why. Because what is it to me? You know what I mean? Like, why do I care? What does it matter what other people think about this movie, or whether or not that's quote unquote true or untrue about it, provable or unprovable about it? It's not the right kind of thing to be asking about it anyway. But the weird thing about it is I feel like I've gone through phases with it myself where I felt this way about it, where I'm like, I want to distance myself from it for those reasons, but then it keeps suggesting it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it's just, you know, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
Partly, anyway.
I keep feeling like, yeah, a lot of things went through my head now.
I always find this very difficult to express somehow. You know,
I think
the pain of knowing a secret or something.
Yes.
Or thinking you do. What's worse, you know? Actual secret or a secret you've just imagined, but it kind of amounts to the same problem. It's a secret. See, it's a secret that you can't tell anyone. You know, no one can hear it. You can say it, but they don't know the secret.
Yeah. I think also, God, man, it's funny. This thing is like on the tip of my tongue, and it keeps. It's probably why religion has always had this. You know, there's always this tradition of preaching, and even what you call it when you go when people go to other countries to convert other people, like crusades and stuff like that. Like it's sort of, you understand,
missionary.
right? Missionary. Like, I understand the archetypal meaning of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like I don't like burning people at the stake and stuff. I think that's a specific way in which this archetype, you know, has been materialized. But I think like somehow there is something about this energy that really goes together with the act of speaking it to everyone, because somehow, like, the idea of converting everyone to a single religion archetypally, is an interesting idea. The idea that there is some sort of a truth that if only everyone could know it, if only everyone could have faith in it, like the entire life of the planet would improve. That sort of an idea is an interesting one, right? I don't know how that idea could express itself in a way that didn't like violate human rights and stuff like
right,
that.
But it simply does, though. I mean, what is a society? You know, ultimately, there's going to be some agreed upon version of reality and what we're doing broadly, and etc. And you have to kind of buy into that to exist in these weird social blocks we've organized into, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think it's also because when you God. Yeah, I think you were saying before about if you go against the currents in the group, you will feel that.
Yeah.
You will feel it pushing against you.
Yeah.
I've really been thinking about this recently. How intense that is, how there are certain currents that can really push against you. And I think maybe part of the frustration for me with a lot of the sync stuff is that somehow sync stands at the center, at the absolute center of the labyrinth of being yourself or something. It is sync, and the secretive nature of sync, the fact that I keep it hidden in the closet, has somehow gone together with all of the other things that I keep hidden in my closet.
Right.
Like, right, in terms of sexuality or political ideas or whatever it may be, it's like sync almost is like the epicenter of whatever it is that I keep hidden.
Yeah.
And I can't express to other people. And so I think that my inability to express it, the pain that causes is also the pain of not being able to express any of the other things. It's not just that. It's like this pain of being pushed.
Yeah.
That somehow, if I can't express sync, I can also not express any of the other things. And
sync becomes symbolic in a way of the unconscious in general, you know, which includes all these things you're talking about, obviously.
Yeah.
Secret interior things, yeah. And we often just say that about it too. We're like, synchronicity is the unconscious making contact with you or communicating to you, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Thing is I'm becoming more and more aware of the fact that that's like the unconscious. Putting it that way has the unfortunate effect of sort of monolithizing it. You know, the unconscious includes a lot. You know, properly. It's just anything you're not aware of. So that's not just you. You know, it's a lot of factors probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think like also I keep thinking recently of that idea Terence McKenna has of like that reality is made of stories. He says sometimes.
Oh yeah. I always like when he talks about that.
And it's funny. I found it funny that Jordan Peterson video. It was recently, I think, where he sort of, I don't know, he'd gone through some sort of big synchronicity experience, I guess, and was sort of expressing how it seemed to him like there was something about reality that had the nature of.
Oh, I think I've seen this video. Yeah.
Of the story, and that he was scared of accepting that, right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like moving him. And I was thinking, it's crazy because I don't know. I had one of these moments yesterday, just like I hadn't had like a big sync in a while. I had just like a weird sort of big sort of sync thing, and these sort of moments really make you feel like there is an artistic aspect to reality.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so the thing is then that doesn't mean that this artistic aspect is coming out of like our neurons or atoms and stuff like that. No, it's scarier than that. It almost
Right.
sometimes feels like the artistic aspect of it is just as foundational as any other analytic
Yes. Yeah.
composition of matter you could make. Like that sometimes I'm sitting in front of a movie and like there's like a clock on the movie and the clock is at like whatever 8:32, and just when that clock appears in the movie, like my clock is at 8:22 and
Oh yeah, those are so
some
crazy.
or something like that, and then at the same time something else is happening or whatever, and I'm like, okay, all of those elements constellated at that precise moment. That movie, in conventional terms, you would say that movie wasn't made in order to give me that experience, right? They didn't make that movie so that I could have that
Right.
weird experience, and
Your
yet,
experience is almost an accident from that
right,
standpoint.
and yet, the subtle integration of all those elements makes it seem like how to say it, our usual status quo kind of way of thinking of time and space would think that first you have all of the elements, the movie, the clock, my bedroom, there's all these elements and they exist separately, and then like this is like a materialistic way of looking at it, like they are all different objects and they kind of coincided for me in this moment. But sometimes in those moments, I get the opposite, the flip side of this vision, which is that that moment is the primordial thing. Everything else stems out from it
I see.
somehow.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like in some way, the, and it's impossible to express in language because it's completely non-temporal somehow. It's like there are these moments of awe with Sync where I'm like, that movie is secondary to the moment. The moment I had, that is the primary thing. The clock is secondary. My body is secondary. It's like the all together exists as a story or something, as an artistic moment, as an artistic expression or choice, or it even goes beyond art in some way. I don't know what it is, but it's like I don't know. These moments like this where I'm like, holy shit, like, um, I don't know what to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I often think that the flow of time is extremely related to ideas to do with possibility and actuality, and just like presencing and manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I mean, who knows? But it seems like a big part of what we do is imagine future states that might, we imagine states that might exist
Yeah.
and remember states that
Mm.
I don't know. It's that kind of thing I sometimes say about like the past and future dead are the same. They're just things not occurring in the present. I sometimes feel that way about just our basic memory and like what. Um,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's really
Yeah.
hard to say. These questions to do with time and linearity of time and simultaneity and so on. Like, we're so trapped in our metaphor as an ego perceiver that exists in whatever this weird time thing.
Mm.
But there are models of time that suggest it's not anything like that, like Einstein time cube idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Everything's a simultaneity. Um, but and I love that idea, and it seems like maybe it's true, but if that's true, then why do we not experience it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that strange then? Why do we experience it in this other way? And if that's true, how does any of this make sense then? Like, I don't, how does Darwin exist in an Einsteinian time framework,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
whole idea is like moving through time. We're like iterating on this thing. But if everything's just all at once, there's no reason to be going this way or that way. It breaks any kind of teleological and not teleological exactly, but it breaks any directed movement or change, or would seem to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, I do have the feeling sometimes, that like the past and the future only that like the past and the future are compensations that our psychology makes.
Mm.
There is no such thing as a past, but it would be
Mhm.
useful if there was. So we
Mm.
imagine one somehow.
Oh, right. Interesting. Right. We imagine the past, right, as this sort of tool to to use. Yeah.
But then what are we actually doing? That
Mm.
means that in some deeper ontological sense than we're aware of. In other words, we have like a perceptual illusion that we're going through things in a linear order. But actually, there's no such thing as an order. There's no
Mm-hmm.
such thing as any of that. What are we actually doing then? We're existing in some other state, pretending to exist in time. Why would we invent time? What is it about the actual state of reality that would lead to I guess we can't even speak of a development. It would lead to or even leading, would
Mm.
exist in relation with
Mm.
um, uh, 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 I don't know. I've lost on my own word salad here. I'm just going to abort it. But do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Roughly.
kind of. Yeah, like I think I don't know if this speaks to this, but I sometimes have like the opposite sort of sense. It sort of relates to what I was saying about how sometimes it feels like the moment of synchronicity is like more important than the parts that form it or something. Sometimes I have this sense that the way in which we experience things now in our kind of day-to-day way as being like a body that moves through space and time passes, like this sort of mundane way of experiencing things. I sometimes wonder if this isn't like much more fundamentally true than it seems, and that maybe that
Yeah.
speaks to all this issue of time being jumbled up and weird, in that, because it's like these two ideas, they're two weird ideas, and they sit side by side. One is the sort of idea of like, yeah, like somehow our experience of mundane sort of being a body in space is somehow like a way in which we're processing, or a way in which something is being processed that
Yeah.
doesn't actually have the qualities of linearity and
Yeah,
any of that,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Precisely. I think that's
Like,
what I was trying to articulate.
right,
Yeah.
like there is, so it's weird because there is that sense, and I feel like that even though it contradicts it, it sits side by side in my mind with the opposite idea, which is that the experience of being a body moving through space is actually very radically true for many, many things, including like spirits and gods and other kind of weird things. So it's like, which is weird because then it goes to a really like old-fashioned, like almost traditional view of gods, like the kind of almost prehistoric or Greek kind of ideas of gods as being literally, or fairies and elves and gnomes being literal sort of literal people, literal objects who actually live in literal places, like literal sort of villages out somewhere in other kind of parts of the building of God or whatever, right? In other kind of parts of the space. And sometimes it's funny, I get this sort of really mundane sense of that in a weird way, these two visions are interlocked in some way, because the fact that we're in some way we're connected to everything else. We're connected to all those weird gnomes living in their buildings.
Yeah.
And because of that, or we're connected to some sort of a higher hive mind, and then maybe within us is a smaller hive mind, and
Totally.
so on.
That's how it seems to me. I think we've got little processes inside us, and bigger processes that we are embedded in, and so on. Yeah.
Right. So it's and so there is that, and then at the same time, I constantly get this strong sense that imaginary space is just as physically real as the physical space we're in. So any sort of imagined fantasy land full of fantasy creatures, it's just that we're not there, basically, or we're not perceiving it. The perception of it is not as strong for us as the perception of this room, or something like that. But
yeah,
and I think, I don't know, man. Yeah, there's a lot of things about that relate to me to art and stuff. Yeah,
it's very interesting to hear you say that, because I used to feel that way really strongly about my dreams. I really used to feel like as if I was going someplace physical. It was an intuitive belief I formed about them as a really little kid, because I had out of body experiences in between being awake and being asleep. So the kind of the basic explanation our culture gives you, that like you have these two different things. You're walking around in the real world, in the physical world, you're awake, and then you're asleep, and actually you're in your bed, and your real body is just not doing anything, but in your mind you're like imagining that you're moving around in a body.
Yeah.
To me, that explanation never could make any sense, because I experienced a transition where I was somehow in a body, but not in my body, but not fully in a dream. It's like I was in my room, but it, so what are those then? It's suggested to me, it felt like intuitively like what I am is something different from my body. I'm like a ghost, basically, that's trapped in a body, and at night I float out of my body, which I experience as a normal experience. Here I am in my body, like visually experience that, and then from there I float into these other places. And so it seemed to me like I was just like shooting through like the universe, maybe, to some other planet somewhere that happens to match the characteristics of what this dream is that I then experience, and that was really shocking and terrifying to me as a little kid. And I had a fear that I was going to get trapped outside of my body and be able to get back into it. And I just remember the terror of that. It was a really, really, was like my first fear really in the world, was the fear of being trapped outside of my body in a disembodied spirit form. Which I
Right.
don't know.
Fuck.
I think it's actually probably more typical of little kids than we think. I think a lot of kids are less like in their bodies.
Mm. Yeah, I get that
You
sense.
know.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah,
But so
yeah.
maybe that's just maybe, and you know, there are lots of ways to explain what an out of body experience is. But maybe it is like you're saying. Maybe it's much more straightforward than we sometimes think, and it's just
Mm.
yeah. I experienced that
Mm.
because we are souls that
Mm.
bounce around like radio waves and find structures, material structures that can host us. Things with lots of complicated moving parts, like neural networks. Wow, this weird rock over here in this corner of this zone, like, has a bunch of that. We're
Oh,
the
right.
gold that the aliens are here to harvest. It's actually just the gray matter. We're like nice robots for our alien hosts or something. And that's what we are.
Weird. It's yeah. God. But then it's funny because there is this sort of also this other like the weird sort of layered sense of like I think Rick and Morty uh, joke about this a lot. The idea of you actually being like a video game that someone else is playing and so on. And obviously, and then Philip K. Dick obviously does that almost like to infinity, right? That
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could
yeah.
sort of be, and there is this. I remember there was a time when I was really interested in reading other people's trip reports, like mushroom trip reports and stuff like that. And there are a lot of experiences like this of suddenly having the sense that you were remembering, you were sort of waking up as the person who is playing the game almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that in Rick and Morty, that weird, like,
Mm.
you, like, immerse in a video game and it's like an entire person's life, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
live
yeah.
through some entire, like, 80-year-long experience and then pop out of it back into the arcade. So funny.
I don't know. I wonder if there's sort of something like that going on, but where it's maybe not just it's not just bodies involved. It's not just bodies in the sense of like living organisms, but that somehow we're we are also like the trees and the rocks dreaming each other. Things like I don't know, sort of weird things like that. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know what you mean.
uh,
Well, I think for me, a lot of this
I don't
stuff just
know.
stems from the fact that there's a basic uncanniness to human experience. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I find that just the fundamentals of it to be incredibly inexplicable. Uh, I mean, this point is hammered home actually if you know about the statistics of natural images.
Oh,
Um,
right.
they're not like they're wonky. Like if you imagine like an image, okay, that's just like a box of pixels. Like you can fill it with so many configurations, like billions of configurations of pixels, and even like a moderately resed screen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
how many images can you see on an iPhone screen? Well, it depends on how you frame the question. Like, there's a nearly infinite number of images you can generate if all you want to see are like colored white noise. You know,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
um, that's most images. Like, if you think of it as a statistical space,
Mm.
most images are just going to be random. The
Mm.
images that we see around us in the world are the exact opposite of that. It's a structure everywhere, patterns,
Yeah.
patterns, 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 patterns. That's because there's nothing random going on here. Everything here is the result of extremely ordered, structured interactions of systems.
Yeah.
And the patterns that we perceive visually are the result of that.
Mm. 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 Mm.
I'm stoned and don't remember where I started. What was I talking about here?
Natural images, the
Yeah,
statistics
but why? But why, Al? Don't you know why I was talking about this before I told you why I was talking about it?
I think that you're saying how just the fundamentals of life
Oh,
seem
right.
strange to you.
Basic, yeah, thank you so much. The basic uncanniness of it, yeah. Exactly. It's unlikely, for one thing. Considered from that angle, it's very unlikely. I should look around me and just see noise. This is actually like a flat, statistically normal situation here. But it's not. This is some kind of insane aberration. Everywhere I look, there's some kind of crazy structured image. And then I myself seem to be some thing that exists mainly to process all those structured images. You know? Yeah. So there is this basic sense in which reality is just a big, weird art gallery, and I'm just constantly looking at the next weird, structured, unlikely picture, like infinitesimally unlikely picture. They just keep coming. Yeah. It's like these movies keep showing me weird, unlikely 9/11 matches. Like, but just life is that way. The whole thing is that way from start to finish, and so I find it bizarre.
Yeah.
It should exist, you know. I think that's pretty core, maybe, to like the psychedelic mindset or something. It's just there's a weirdness that doesn't need to be proved. It's self-evident in the fact that this is what we're experiencing. What is this? What are we? You know, it's very peculiar. Just and the things that science tells us about it just make it stranger. At least that's my perspective. They don't comfort me at all. The fact that they're looking into these things and it's like, okay, it's like a bunch of balls with like charge and spin and stuff, and then it like collapses with this weird like particle wave thing. Like, what is? Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Nuts. Nuts. What is it? What is it? Yeah. And are we really? I mean, it's still a valid question, at least to me. Like, are we just an aberration or a weird statistical anomaly? What's the meaning of that? What's the meaning of statistics in the context of what this thing is? You know, it's just, I find it all very, very weird. And to me, that's a context that's just like ongoing beneath everything. You know, you just kind of cue into it more at some certain times than others. You know?
Yeah.
The fact that sync is also going on is just more weirdness on the weird cake, you know?
Yeah.
It's all weird. It's weird to start with. It's weird. There's never anything normal about it. You're like, I'm in this weird body. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They tell me that I used to be a slime a billion years ago. Here I am with thoughts and like, dreams.
I love it. It sort of reminds me of what you were saying earlier about shapes and colors in movies, how shapes and colors in movies will sort of become organized in a way that builds a pattern that's bigger.
Yeah.
And that pattern has a quality to it that when it is perceived by the perceiver, what we perceive in it is somehow intelligence, in the sense that we perceive a message being spoken. Sometimes we perceive anger, like it's scolding us, or sometimes it's congratulating us. You know, it's like this weird sort of thing.
Or seducing us.
Or seducing us. Right, or seducing us, or like so that it's like all those shapes, colors and shapes, very simple things, constellated into a thing that we're interacting with, and it is intelligent. It sort of reminds me of what you were saying about just exactly the weirdness of the fact that we're surrounded by structure that has accumulated, mountains, rocks, trees, all of these structures, right? The way we describe them usually are as the way we seem to observe them evolve through time is that simple things, atoms and molecules, they kind of get together and they form more complex structures and all that. And it's like that. It's the same thing that's happening with movies almost. That somehow all of that generates levels of structure that are meaningful and that somehow highlight life, and that highlight life, that they show life beyond what we would scientifically consider to be life, as i.e. animals and plants, right? That somehow, and that's what sort of Sync seems to be, that a fucking a billboard on a street that's made of paper and metal can somehow speak to me, right? Like that, or that you can somehow, exactly, that somehow the mechanisms through which life operates, what we call life, and being angry, being seduced, being sad, all of these things seem to come through this enormous constellation, this ecosystem of objects, all kind of like alive and dead, future and past. They're all sort of kind of like constellating around, and I don't know what I'm saying exactly, but yeah, that's something.
No. Are you afraid to look at modern cinema?
I must admit, I'm not as afraid to look at modern cinema as I am to look at old cinema at the moment.
Interesting.
I'm more afraid of watching like a 90s movie than I am of watching a recent one right now.
Interesting.
But yeah. But I can see what you mean, though.
Yeah.
Have you been engaging with it recently?
No, I don't want to see any of these movies. I think I'm kind of not ready to interact with COVID precog right now. Something. We're just in the middle of that apex, probably. You know.
Yeah.
I had enough of that for now with Us and Fear Inoculum. It's not in a mood for it. I feel like it's in all these weird movies. I watched Tom and Jerry, and I don't know if it's like in it exactly, but for me, just even watching these weird like images of New York, like right before the pandemic hit, it's just uncanny in an uncomfortable way at the moment.
Yeah. Right, I'm looking at screenshots. I didn't even know there was a Tom and Jerry movie.
Oh God! Oh shit! We haven't talked about it. Yeah, this fucking Tom and Jerry movie. It's so weird. Like I have no idea what it means. Like I didn't get like a strong Sync read on it or anything, but I found it kind of hard to watch actually. Yeah, reason, and also because it's so stupid. Like most of it is just like Chloe Grace Moretz subplot, which becomes like the main plot, which is like her being like a Manhattan socialite or something, or like interacting with socialites. It's like a lot of stuff in this hotel. I don't know, but like the fact that it's in a hotel weirds me out. It's like a weird Shining thing. And Tom and Jerry don't talk. There are other cartoon animals in it that do talk. It's strange that way. Like, why are they mute? You know, the film never addresses it, and by making that decision of having other cartoon animals talk, it kind of highlights the fact that they don't. So if you're doing like a closed read of this Tom and Jerry movie, it's like, is that some agreement between them? Like they don't speak? Like do they not know how to speak? Are they like mentally handicapped? Like what's going on with them? But anyway.
I've got to say, like, okay, so this is a strange thing to say.
Yeah, as opposed to
everything else. I'm looking at screenshots of it. It looks very strange the way the way the CGI interacts with the live action.
Yeah.
Maybe it works differently in video, but in screenshot form, it looks superimposed, just completely green screeny.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's weird. Because the animation is actually, they're 3D. They're animated in 3D, and then like a shader is put on them at the last stage of the process to make them look more like a flat cartoon.
Yeah.
But they're actually rendered in, with three-dimensional puppets, like you do any other CG thing these days. So they can interact volumetrically with the scene and all of that.
Mm.
But then they just try to make it look cartoon stylized with a weird like filter almost at the end of that process. Yeah.
I hate it. Like, I mean, I
yeah, it's really weird.
I hate it in the sense that I love it. Like, you know what I mean? It has this sort of, because the cell shading makes them look like flat images.
Yeah.
But they clearly exist in perspective, 3D perspective. What is that?
Yeah, it's so weird. Oh man, I saw the first trailer for Space Jam, the new Space Jam.
Oh.
It is weird. Like so what happens is they upgrade the Looney Tunes to 3D, and so like Bugs and Lola have like fur sims, like 3D for like Sonic fur, and it's horrific. They look truly weird. Also, Elmer Fudd as this weird little 3D like pink skinned pig man is grotesque, extremely horrific. Uh, Daffy looks pretty good because he's just a duck. He's mostly just kind of black, the fur and the skin looks it's so. You should watch the trailer. I think you should watch it right now.
Yes, I'm looking at screenshots, but I'm gonna watch the trailer. Yeah. Fuck. Oh my god. Legacy, a new legacy. Okay.
The fact that it's called that already makes me know it's going to be a religious film.
Right.
There's a new Bible chapter.
Oh, they have like statues of Looney Tunes characters in their house.
Oh shit, Alan.
Yes.
I lost your audio for a stupid reason. Hold on.
Oh no.
Okay, there you are.
Yes.
I started watching this trailer and my phone took over control of my Bluetooth headphones and I couldn't hear you anymore.
What?
Let's turn that off here.
Oh, this is weird.
Are you watching it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a magic elevator or something. So it has like a kind of like Men in Black. Oh, right. Is it like in a server room? This is also bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where are you at in it?
I went back to the server room, so now he's falling through space.
Cool. Same, yeah. Great. So it's like, are they in like the Warner Brothers like server room or something? It's actually like they're. It kind of implies that like the Space Jam world, they're going to Toon World. Like they could have gone to some other media franchise. That's weird. They're situating it in like a metaverse kind of.
Wait. Okay. Oh fuck. Yeah, I'm not liking this.
Yeah, right.
This is frightening.
It's really scary. Oh man, parts that I can just barely look at. The weird like CGification, like morph thing, it's like scary. And there's like fucking Fred Flintstone running around.
Yeah.
Thing. My God, the monsters! Oh man, they did a really good job. They're like elemental, like water, air, and shit.
Oof, those furs.
Yeah, the fur is so gross looking.
You know, okay, this is strange. Like, we were talking about the cornucopia earlier. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, here it is.
this land, there's like the Eiffel Tower here.
Yeah.
It's like all of the different big things of planet Earth all in one same place.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very similar to Sonic with the they run through all the wonders of the world at the end. Or Bill and Ted in a way, the song that unites the whole Earth. It's more of that thing.
Yes.
Things being drawn together into. I feel like Ready Player One has similar energy to this trailer. You know, it's like big crowds of other media properties. You know, and just like crowd scenes in which it's like, oh, there's this character from this thing, there's this character from this other thing. It's like all the gods together in a big god orgy, big myth. You know, it's all being drawn together into one big fucking weird thing.
Yeah.
It really, you know, in the art world, I feel like Terrence's predictions are really coming true. They might not be coming true so strongly in the exactly literal physical world, but in our fantasy space, it is absolutely the transcendental object at the end of time. These movies are just more and more becoming. Doesn't this thing even show you some weird ethereal like cyber ball that contains all the fantasies of mankind or something? You know, that's it. That's the eschaton. Space Jam is showing you an image of the eschaton. Space Jam showing you an image of the eschaton. So let's say it one more time.
There's something really eerie about this. This desire. Why do we have this desire to have all of our different franchises all together?
It's
And
the
not.
integrated personality, right? That's Christ. It's like
Oh, yeah, right, right.
draw all the aspects together into the perfect God form. It includes them all. You know?
Yeah, like yeah, because it's exactly. It's funny. It's all of the franchises, and it's also in itself Space Jam. So it's an old movie basically. It's a reboot of an old franchise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So we are literally
that Joe
exactly.
Dante touched. I want to say because he did the weird quasi sequel that wasn't really a sequel.
Okay.
With
oh yeah,
Jenna
with
Elfman
fucking
and Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. Yeah, I still have to watch that.
Looney Tunes Back in Action or whatever it was called. Right?
Exactly, but it's like I can't help feeling that at some point this is going to become like obvious. The fact that how to say it, like it's again the thing about shapes and colors. You put enough shapes and colors together, and a pattern is going to emerge. We're putting we're making so many movies which are just reboots of old franchises altogether that basically after a few years we will have probably spent like a couple of decades basically just fantasizing about old franchises from the 80s. So at which point are we going to say, oh fuck, we've spent 50 years fantasizing about fucking old franchises and we've seen them in all their possible all the possible sort of combinations. At some point, weird transmedia patterns are going to emerge, i.e., sync, like movies.
Yes,
between the franchises.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right, because the fans are going to play this game. They're going to play the let's look for Easter egg game.
Exactly.
And it's going to be impossible to play that game without it being syncy if what you're playing with is an enormous soup of old franchises.
Isn't it weird that Ready Player One seems to kind of anticipate all that? Because it's about a hunt for Easter eggs, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah,
that's a
like
more important movie than people understand currently.
Mm. Yeah, like it anticipates that that's what we're going to be doing. In a sense, it's almost like, okay, our mainstream creative output has somehow frozen. It's been frozen in time. Why has it frozen? It's frozen because
That's such a great way to put it. Wow, yeah, it is. It happened. It froze in the
it,
80s. The clock tower really was struck in the 80s. You know,
right. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
we're just on this loop between like 1988 and 2001.
Mm.
We just keep approaching 9/11 over and over again and never breaking through to the actual new time, to the actual new world. We're still in this buffer, this trauma buffer, where the big
Yeah.
trauma happened that we never
Mm.
recovered. But it fits with that sort of
Yeah.
view.
Yes, it seems like we're sort of we're going to look at this trauma and we're going to look at it like it's almost like we're not giving ourselves a chance to think of new things because it's like we need to process it, and the only
We're
way we can
like
process
at the
it.
confrontation point now because
Yeah.
it's officially 20 years. You know, that's it now. Like
Yeah.
we have people alive now who weren't alive when it happened, and they are
Yeah.
going to force a perspective shift as it
Yes.
moves into the new generations. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, yeah.
I wonder if I
No.
just I I feel as if there are absolutely going to be weird art ripples on the anniversary. You know.
Oh,
I'm
right.
expecting the release of things that will once again like contain many weird layered impressions of the event in one way or another. You know,
Yeah.
I think maybe we're leading up to that in a funny way. With I've already seen things like that. There's all that weirdness in the news with the building that collapsed in Florida. Did you follow that at all?
No, actually, no.
This building collapsed and it like killed a ton of people and people were like buried underground and like in the news for several weeks. It was just all these shots that looked like ground zero, and people were even commenting on how it resembled
Wow.
that, and less people commenting on how it was just in time for the 20th anniversary of it. But that's certainly true about it. It was like a twin towered style apartment.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it collapsed.
Seeing photos of it. God.
And I feel like these weird COVID-infested movies, like Tom and Jerry, kind of exist in synchrony. I mean, just the fact that there was another big disaster in New York, right, on the heels of the 20th anniversary of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah.
All of that, 2020, the year of vision, etc. All that remains super weird, you know. But
I wonder if this thing you just said about 20 years.
yeah.
That seems interesting. Like maybe 20 years is an important number because every 20 years, more or less, with a certain sort of buffer zone,
Yeah.
Whenever people become 20, that's when a big part of the population start to having babies from their 20s
It's
onwards.
a good kind of rough generational marker still.
Yeah.
There's a lot of debate like how long is a generation, but like when people are 20, they're basically fully cognizant participators in a society, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we have a new generation of young adults every 20 years, you know.
Exactly. There's a new generation. Yeah. Right. So maybe every 20 years, exactly, there is some sort of processing of the decade from 20 years before, almost.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a return to origin at the coming to at the flowering of the first flowering of consciousness in the life cycle, basically. That's how I look at it. It's like when you turn 18, 19, 20, 21, you're exiting your teenage psychology and entering into a very new psychology. And I think at that point, you've gone through so much growth and development now that you do a natural life scan. And you go back to when you were born. And that's about 20 years ago.
Right,
and so that
right,
it becomes like a mythical origin. It becomes related to the idea of origin. And so for us, that was the 80s, more or less. So the 80s relates to ideas about origin and identity. It's a kind of astrological marker for us in a way, you know. 80s aesthetic is like something that was like just printed along with us when we were born. For other but for this new generation, that's early 2000s. So 9/11 is a mythical origin to do with when they were born. That's going to change the meaning of it, you know.
Yeah. I want because I think I've lost you. No, okay.
You're breaking up.
I think because I notice also with sync stuff that the 80s are some sort of a threshold for me, because 70s movies, 60s movies, 50s movies, I can love.
They're more alien.
Exactly. Yeah. I can watch them and love them. There's obviously, and I can't. It's not just I can. I do. There's loads of movies I love from those eras, but movies begin to be very weird and syncy for me from the 80s onwards. It's a clear kind of point. So
yes.
I wonder if. So maybe there is some sort of a macro historical aspect to this. I think there probably is. Like
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
The actual nature of the 80s as a moment in planet Earth.
Just the development of cinema too. Like the technology was changing in the 80s, and you couldn't have made films with the density of the Zemeckis picture, really, with the way movies were made previously in the studio systems. You know, a lot of stuff was changing, I think, in the 80s. But it's like it wasn't just that it was changing in the 80s. Obviously, it's just cinema as a whole starts to look like this weird, like schizoid arc. You know, they're just cramming more and more visual information into the thing. That's the trajectory. That's the ride we've been on. You know, if you look at a movie, if you look at that fucking trailer we just watched for Space Jam, has so much going on visually in every single frame. You know, it's wild how like those crowd shots, especially the cornucopia. You know, it's the cornucopia aesthetic. That's a schizoid aesthetic. You're filling every frame, every little wedge of white space in your sheet will be covered with deranged religious scrolling. You know?
Yes, exactly. It is. Yeah, totally. It's that typical sort of like, small detail sort of, schizophrenia sort of
claustrophobic
thing.
like miasma. Yeah, exactly.
Funny. That's crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm really curious. Exactly. I'm really curious what like the history of sync will be. What will future generations of sync heads do? What type of analysis are they going to do? What kind of movies are they going to engage with? I'd be interested. There's probably already, maybe not, but there's probably already like people in their late teens now who are having the same kind of obsessions with movies that we are. Or maybe not. Maybe it's a completely generational thing. Maybe it's like we were a mushroom of nutheads who coincided with the 80s.
I sometimes think about that. Well, I think we touched on this a little bit before, right? Because of the nature of like video playback technologies and stuff. We watched a very small number of films very repetitively. That was our first way of relating with media. We had a very narrow bandwidth in terms of what we could access. There was like what our parents would buy us and what we could get at a video store on rental or something. And so we had like a small collection of tapes, and we would just watch those movies over and over and over and over again. And I think that that experience, maybe that still exists. People probably have favorite movies as kids that they have on their iPad or something and watch over and over again. So I'm sure that that's not gone. It's just that it has now been supplemented and maybe kind of overtaken a little bit by the more typical experience today is like consuming very, very many things very briefly and shallowly, you know? But they both, I think, can lead to a perception of archetypal activity, you know?
Right, yeah.
You put it very beautifully once. You said that
Mm.
that there's the new generation is going to, what did you say? It's going to see the same meta movie over and over again.
Oh, right.
They're just going to watch
Right.
so much content, kind of channel flipping around all this content, that they'll see the same shapes existing between all that content. Whereas we watched this, just one thing a million times and saw those shapes in its deeper layers, they'll just see it skimming at the surface of the millions of things that they're viewing. You know?
Oh shit! Right. Fuck. Crazy.
Just kind of approaching it from different angles, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
And you can kind of see trends in that direction. I think, like a much deeper kind of genre awareness. Like, oh, this is another one, like video like this. You know, another video of like a angry guy in a red hat talking about immigrants or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there are these streams of like similar content on the internet, and sorting that content is like big business on the internet, developing algorithms to process and quantify those similarities and differences and match them to user consumer profiles and so on. So it motivates a lot of the activity that we're actually doing all the time with the internet. A lot of it's like a big weird picture box, video stream box where it's all. I get very agitated when I think about this stuff. I don't know about you. I'm kind of like fidgeting over here. I'm like itching my leg with this like instant stick. Just to kind of take note of my body for a second here.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Because it really strong. You know, it really implies that technology is an instrument in our evolution somehow that is maybe a bit of a brutal one or something. Like it's really I don't know, everything we're doing to do with like understanding patterns. What these things are turning into is devices that bring us patterned information and pre-process it in various ways for us, and will soon allow us to detect subtle sorts of patterns. You know, we should fully expect, like in the near future, right, that like this thing is going to be part of it. What it's going to be is going to be like a unified wallet, and so we probably aren't going to have like a lot of paper currency and stuff. I do think it's probably all going to shift to like digital currencies. Yeah. And it's all going to be integrated into one big thing. And one thing that this will do is it'll just track my spending habits and give me really detailed reports every month about, compared to previous months, you know, am I spending more or less? You're spending more on groceries, you're spending more on media, you're spending less on this or that. Yeah. That will get probably more and more subtle in terms of the kinds of useful high-level information it might be able to extract from monitoring things like that, you know. So they're going to help us detect subtle patterns in our own behavior.
Yeah.
They're going to help us detect subtle patterns in the behaviors of other people. Your phone might be able to alert you that, like, hey, this person rips you off all the time. They keep charging you slightly more than I know the market value of this thing happens to be or something. You should find a different vendor. You know?
Yeah. Funny. That's funny. Yeah. Huh.
It's not unreasonable to think that systems like that might detect weird, acausally manifesting patterns accidentally. That, you know? Or just notice strange things about people. I still think that ultimately it's a kind of or at least part of what this technology is a mirror. We think we're looking through it to a bunch of stuff, but it's actually watching us and learning about us. Both the stuff that it shows us, it's watching, and it's watching you, watching that stuff. And that stuff together, it's like a meta art analysis process or something. It's not just analyzing the art. These algorithmic systems are analyzing the art plus the user response. That's what it cares about, is about correlating those two things so that it can learn about the user and advertise to the user and give the right content to the user, be a good kind of like poodle and fetch the right movies for you and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It cares about the art plus the user response to it. And a thing like YouTube is a giant data archive of that kind of thing, because people record react videos. It's like the most popular genre on YouTube. It's like people in a little box watching some stuff. And if neural nets aren't currently looking at that, they could easily look at that stuff in the future and just learn a bunch of stuff about what happens when human beings look at pictures like that. And the more it knows about those users generally, like if it knew more about each individual person, like not just here's some generic this movie, but Leonard watching this movie. And I know about Leonard that he has this job and he is in this relationship and he is, etc. It could learn all kinds of subtle things about, maybe Leonard watches a movie and that movie changes his mind about something, and the next week he's fired from his job because of an altercation he had that this system can kind of understand statistically. It really is unlikely to have happened if he hadn't been exposed to this piece of thing. Like it could of art. Sorry, piece of thing. I wonder about how how we will integrate the existence of mirrors at this level of fidelity. They're not just going to show you who you are right now. They're going to extract statistical features about who you are through time. That's a big shift,
Yes. Yeah, right, exactly. It's not just a mirror, exactly. It's a new kind of mirror. It's not just a mirror where you see yourself in the present.
With a time plot telling you, you did. It's like my phone already does stuff like that. It tracks my steps. I found out recently. I didn't know this, but your phone, if you have an iPhone, it just has this health app on it, and it's unless you deliberately turn it off. I guess it's just like ambiently detecting when you're walking, because it knows how to detect patterns that look like someone's walking based on the gyroscope, and then it counts your steps, and so it can tell me exactly how many miles I've walked every day. And I had no idea it was recording this information, and I can just already look at like graphs and see like, oh, I'm averaging more on this day on this month than I was on the same day in the last month. Like, being able to see stuff like that immediately visually is really powerful. Right where you are. You can't lie to yourself as much about I'm actually up on my exercise, or maybe you discourage yourself all the time and you think I'm never working out enough. That was kind of what my attitude was, actually. But I was looking at this thing like, wow, I'm actually walking like many miles every single day just moving around the city, So there'd be many revelations from these sorts of things, I think, as they get more and more sophisticated. Probably a lot of stuff that we can't anticipate at all. They'll notice things that are really unconscious to us, but that might be really obvious to some dumb thing just looking for basic statistical facts like this,
God, it reminds me of just the general idea of a magical journal. Like in so many different traditions of magic, they encourage keeping a journal that is not the kind of journal where you just ramble on about your life, but is a very specific statistical kind of journal where like
to notice patterns.
So it's like this is the high-tech version of that, where you don't even have to do it yourself. It just gets done for you.
That's
it gets journaled.
Exactly it, dude. There's this weird direct path, it seems to me, from these advancements in AI to these magical perceptual phenomena. And that is not generally understood. It really is not grasped, that this weird souped up computer vision neural net stuff. It's like it's gonna act like a psychedelic agent partly. You know? Deep Dream, that Google thing, prefigures that aesthetically. It just shows you neural nets and weird psychedelic, like reality horror meltdowns go together. But we're actually going to live through that as a experiential thing, I think.
Right. Yeah.
They are going to change our reality. They're going to change our picture of ourselves, our model of ourselves, by informing us about all these things that we currently don't know or do know and try not to know, maybe, and so on.
Yeah, right. That thing about Deep Dream, that's interesting. Exactly. Like, we're already seeing that AI-generated images are, exactly, they can be very uncanny, unsettling, sort of weird combinations of things that you didn't imagine could be combined. So patterns that you weren't imagining, right? Like,
hey, remember when YouTube's brain imagined that the Notre Dame fire was a playback of 9/11?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, I didn't remember that actually, but yeah.
Yeah, that totally happened. It flagged all these live videos of Notre Dame. Like, basically, this algorithm thought it was living in 2001 for a few hours while Notre Dame burned. You know, it threw it back because of an actual similarity in the picture. It was another burning tower, basically from that angle. Colors are basically the same. There's black smoke on kind of a bluish sky thing. You know, it's 9/11. I found that frightening then, and still frightening. Because what it did was it amplified an implicit association that was there for us too. You know.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody was probably thinking, "Oh, it looks a little bit like 9/11," a little unconsciously.
Yeah.
And then the stupid YouTube thing just blurts out, "Wow, it's 9/11," you know, because no tact. So it's going to be like that with brutal things it tells you about yourself. It's going to be like, you know.
Exactly. It's like the silly sort of comedy character who just like blurts out all the things that it shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Oof. Yeah.